Hi, folks, and welcome to another episode of my podcast. Today is episode 57, and I have the great honor of having with me Daniel Hoss, diving in directly from the north of Portugal. He is an American Israeli, so there's a lot to be said here. We want to go through his trajectory, starting in the US, spending a lot of time in Israel. I think there's Prague in the middle, but we'll get into that
There's,
in a
yeah.
bit. So, there's Prague, yeah. It's not fake news? Good.
It's not fake news.
Never know these days, and that's another thing we want to explore: the media, how the media is covering Israel with all the lies. We try to uncover the way they try to expose the Jewish nation. So we try to pass an image that is accurate, that you guys know what's happening, and you are not just misled by the media. And we'll talk about your career as an actor, and also in the tech sector, which I think is an interesting combination. So that's what we're going to have in the next hour, or maybe 1.5 hours. There's so much to cover. So if you know someone who is into these real and raw conversations, share. They can join the conversation. The chat box is open, by the way. We want to make sure this is dynamic, interactive. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. And if you enjoy the conversation, give us a thumbs up. So that's what I usually ask at the beginning. And yeah, we'll take it from there. Dan, you are very welcome to this podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
So would you like just to introduce yourself to the audience, just a couple of paragraphs about who you are, and people will have an idea and what kind of conversation we'll have in the next 60 to 90 minutes.
So thank you again for having me. My name is Daniel Hoss. I'm 34 years old. And I am originally from the United States, but my parents are from Israel. I've lived in Israel since 2014, so about almost 10, 11 years now. In the 7th of October, my father's friend was one of the kidnapped people, Oded Lifshitz. Unfortunately, we did not get him back alive. It was a difficult day for us anyway, and the returning of him was difficult as well. I have been very blessed to have worked in the acting industry and in tech in Israel as well. And since the 1st of August, I have been here in Europe, an interesting journey spanning from Prague to Vienna, and now here in the north of Portugal.
Very good. So we just started, and people are already writing some comments on the chat. That's your popularity.
Yeah.
Hello, Daniel.
Yes.
Shalom from Salman Haider.
Yes, I'm very grateful. Thank you. Oh yes, yes, I see that. A few friends of mine have found out about this interview, and they're watching. So thank you very much for those that want to watch. Very grateful.
Yeah, great. So chat box is open. Don't hesitate to put questions, comments, concerns, whatever you want to throw. We'll pick it and try to answer. Try to come back to you to the best of our ability. So let's start going to your trajectory from the start. I think that's how it makes sense from the beginning. So you grew up in the US. Whereabout in America did you grow up?
So it was mostly between New York State and Wisconsin. So two very different states, although I was born in Arizona, so three different places, but mostly New York and Wisconsin, the latter of which I spent most of my childhood in and teenage years in, which was an interesting place to grow up. Not really many Israeli people, so it was maybe, I would say, not the easiest place culturally for maybe my parents, because I didn't really have a lot of Israeli friends there. but also again, like not really also maybe the easiest place to be Jewish or Israeli, because there was not really such a big Jewish community in Madison. As the state capital, it hosts the flagship university of the state system, the University of Wisconsin at Madison. So there are Jews that come here because of that come there because of the university itself, but many of them do not stay long term. They go back to their communities. So it was not the easiest place to be Jewish, and definitely not Israeli. But I survived it.
You survived, yeah, you survived. Well done, well done. I'm glad you are still alive and kicking. So you were, you mentioned, like, in terms of the demographics, you were a minority. Was there any clash, any incident, let's say, on a day-to-day basis, or just a generic feeling?
I would say when I was maybe in what we would call middle school, between the grades of 6 through 8, there was an incident that I do remember of someone that drew a swastika. This was in the era of MySpace, if we could talk about how long ago that was. Who drew a swastika on my photo. It was dealt with, but to be quite realistic, without trying to shame anyone, without trying to shame the more of the community there, I feel like they didn't understand how much of a difficulty like it was. And for anyone that doesn't grow up like as a minority within a minority, maybe they just don't understand like the dynamic of how difficult like it could be, so to speak.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you need to experience yourself. You cannot just tell.
Exactly.
You need to have it firsthand. There are things that we can share, and people have an idea, even though it's vague. Those you need to feel it on your skin, isn't it?
Right. Exactly.
We got a comment here. Good interview, says Tampering.
Yes, I saw the comment in Portuguese. I'm very grateful. Muito obrigado.
We just started. If you are enjoying Tamburi, we just started. We want to get better as we carry on. So you think that mistreatment of the Jewish community, it was because they hated the Jews, or it was just targeting every single minority?
I think more or less when you would have these issues, it was more of sometimes in the community, I would say it was just targeting certain minorities. Sometimes I would say that it was specifically like Jew hatred. And I don't want to say these people were very provincial, they didn't understand, because you have to remember, like growing up in the suburbs of the state capital, these people are not. It's not that they don't have access to news or culture or information. Many of these people were like in a suburb, but 5, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes outside of the capital. So they could, learn if they wanted to learn something. But again, some old held views sometimes just take longer to die, so to speak. And when you want to say that you're like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I think a lot of these people try to. There is a kind of feeling, I think, in the state capital in Madison, that they are very multicultural and that they understand like about many different cultures. And I think that is somewhat true. But I think when you are a Jewish person, the idea that like a lot of these people have is like, well, Jews are so ingrained into American society that they're not considered a minority, or they're not considered worthy of certain protections or certain understandings. Like I felt that a lot, like that. They didn't. The best way to put it maybe is that you understand everything about their society, their culture, their religion, their everything. But when they understand, like when it comes to their understanding about our culture and our religion and our way of life, they really didn't understand as much as maybe they would think they understood.
Yeah, that happens quite a lot, and especially because people take things for granted. They don't really investigate or actually get to the degree of interaction. They just make some assumptions based on, let's say, what they see on the news or word of mouth. And there's, you as an expert, you know that the best way to gathering insights is to put yourself out there, no?
And I do. I know, like, sometimes it's very difficult to put yourself out there, and sometimes you're afraid to put yourself out there. I mean, you are from Lisbon, right? So if I make a few like Lisbon references, you'll understand. Like, you go by Capo Pequeno or by the what is the building? Right by the Mayo building in the center of the like center of the city, and you see, especially like by Capo Pequeno, you see the Palestinian flag and the hatred of some people against us. But then you see the beautiful sides of people who want to understand and really do, support you. So, it gives me some certain hope for certain places.
Yeah. Do you think, just diverting a bit the let's say the discussion, do you think people stand for Palestine just because it's trendy, or did they stand from heart?
I think, as you said, like in the beginning of your question, I think they stand for it because it's trendy. It's always kind of trendy to support the the underdog of what they
Yeah.
may see. And when it comes to a David and a Goliath kind of thing, unfortunately, too many people see Israel as the Goliath or as a kind of which is unfortunate and unfair. They see Israel as a kind of European uh, colony outside of Europe. They see it as that. And it's unfair because again in Europe the idea is that as far as what I felt and what some people have kind of made me feel at times that many people are like, oh well, why are you in Israel, why are you this, go back to where you came from. And then you come to Europe and you see that, a lot of people just are like, well, you don't like this, don't like that, go back to wherever it is. But back to that point, like it's trendy. It's trendy. You see how the news reports it. You see how just people are unwilling to get an understanding. You see how it's reported in certain, movies. That what was that? That No Other Land movie that was just given what was it? An Oscar, I think. And
Yeah.
what many people don't know, one of the staff on that movie, one of the producers, I don't know what it was, not the Israeli that is kind of being shown like all the time, but another one was actually killed in the Nova Festival, and or maybe it was a different event on that day, but he was killed. I remember that day, and there's no mention of that because again, their narrative would start to crumble.
Yeah.
Nobody nobody in Europe, or many people in Europe, and I see again that it is somewhat changing, but not enough. They don't question enough. I think they just accept it at face value,
Yeah.
the popularity, and it is really sad. If you're going to to try and say you want to understand something, should at least be able to do the research and be able to kind of dig through,
Yeah.
what might be false, what might be popular, what might not be. You need to be able to dig through it, and I don't think many people have this ability these days to be able to sort through what is fact and what is fiction,
Yeah.
or what
100%.
is source to overfitted.
Yeah, we have the tambourine museum here. Exactly, the myth of colonizers. There's nothing worse than
Yes,
being a colonizer these days. It's the
exactly.
it's the biggest insult. You can be a son of a bee. That's fine,
Yeah,
as long as you are not a colonizer.
exactly. And I think I know who Tambourine Zim is actually, and we were insinuated who that would be. So I would love to thank them, for their hospitality
Yeah,
as well.
you refer this David on Goliath, and which I think it's something that first people don't know that myth. They only know the myth of colonizers, and another one is they still know geography. They would conclude that Israel is the Goliath in the region. Like Israel is the smallest, probably the smallest country in the region. I think it's the smallest. If not the smallest, it's one of those. And in terms of size, like Israel is nowhere near the David. Of course, the Israel developed equipment, military intelligence, and all that, but that's their own merit, you know.
Yeah. Yes, and it's sad again. I'm always fighting with someone in some comments on Facebook. If you want to call me a keyboard warrior or something, and trying to get them to, I always ask them, when was the last time you were in the region? When did you do this? When did you do this? I don't have to have had on the ground experience to be able to understand something. Well, kind of do, because unfortunately you hear a lot of the propaganda in some, reporters reporting, or at least you hear the false equivalences in some reporters reporting, and it gets to a point where you're questioning these people, and you keep putting them and telling them, were you on the ground? When was the last time you were on the ground? When do you understand it? What about this? What about that? And they just try to obfuscate and try to ignore the points that you're making, because they know they have no foot to stand on, no ground to stand on.
Yeah, especially when they chant from the river to the sea. And I even saw a couple of footage of people asking, what river, what sea? And like,
We don't know. And if you know Arabic, it's like they don't even mean from the river to the sea. What they really mean is, if the original Arabic saying, if we translate it into English, should be from water to water, Palestine will be Arab. Not Palestine will be free. Not Palestine will be this. Not Palestine will be Christian or whatever, but Palestine will be Arab. And what does Arab mean to them? Muslim. No room for Christian minorities, no room for any minorities, no room for any sort of rights. Just another, country in a region where, you ask them and say, well, what is the difference between XYZ country and XYZ country and XYZ country? If you want to say you have so many places, or you don't have so many places, or whatever you want to say, there are so many Arab and Muslim countries in the world. What are we going to do with another failed state?
Yeah, it's better not even
that is what it would become.
Yeah. Let me go back to your personal journey. So when did you do Aliyah?
It was 2014 that I had done Aliyah. I didn't really do Aliyah, so to speak. My parents were both born in Israel, so I had the right to a passport since my childhood. I didn't have it, of course, because they were very much, I don't want to say against moving to Israel, but like, I think a lot of a lot of people who are like Israelis abroad, they feel like, oh, we gave our children a better life. We wanted to give our children a better life. And now, they're going back to Israel. And the end, they were proud of it, proud of how I succeeded. They've told me, like, as such, I heard it from my father as well before he died, as such. But like, in the beginning, they were very upset about it. But I went in 2014 in the midst of Tzuk and it was an interesting time to decide to go to Israel.
Was there any specific motivator, or just to be among the Jewish crowd?
In the beginning, it was because I actually did like a taglit trip, like a birthright trip, and I was thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm back. I'd come back once in 2011 for my first trip, and so then I come back in 2014, and I'm like, well, I'm here. They're telling all of the embassies are telling all of the Jews or foreigners or whatever to leave, and you'd meet Israelis who had foreign nationality, and it would always be, oh, my parents were from here. Oh, my this. Oh, my that. So it was kind of, to get back to the main point, to get really to the main point, more that I wanted to be amongst my own people, but amongst to kind of challenge myself as well, because I think being in a place when there is a war, when there is a situation that isn't easy, it really does challenge you to kind of, all of your feelings, all of your life experiences, to give you a new, life experience.
Yeah, I think that resonates with most expats when we are pursuing something that will add some flavor to your life, and Israel for sure provides a lot of that. I presume you were in Israel many times before you actually moved on holiday and things like that.
Actually, no. That is the one thing that's very surprising to many people.
First time.
So the first time, it was the second time for me. My first time was in 2011. And you have to remember, I think that what a lot of people don't understand, maybe they will and won't in a sense, that I grew up during the Intifada times. And I think, as much as I want to say that my parents did the right thing, they wanted us to grow up in a very Zionist, very proud Israeli, very, just like that. I don't think their intention was that the child would move to Israel. But when I came in 2011 for the first time, it was, I want to see what my life would have been like if I would have been born and raised here. And I got a bit of it of that experience of everything I grew up on, and in the end, it was. I still don't know my parents as much as I want to, and I want to go back and really explore the way that my parents grew up.
Yeah, and you just got another compliment from our good friend Tamburin. What a courage and the love. Go to Israel to
Yes,
embrace it as your country home, and it is. Yeah.
yes, I'm very grateful for that. Yes, it was a very eh, both difficult and not difficult decision.
Yeah.
But in the end, I did make that decision, and it's an experience.
Mm. And what was your landing port in Israel?
He said, "What was my my
Yeah,
landing
well,
fort?"
where did you start your life in Israel? Did you move to Tel
Okay, so
Aviv,
in,
Haifa?
in the beginning, I started it in Tel Aviv,
Mhm.
and then I went to near Haifa to Binyamina, um, and afterwards, I did a bit of a kibbutz ulpan, a little bit of a kibbutz ulpan.
Yeah.
My father got sick in the end, so I went back for a few months afterwards to the U.S. So I spent maybe September of 2014 to March of 2015 um, back in the United States, and then I came back to Tel Aviv. Spent time in Jerusalem, also in Rehovot, and before
Mm.
moving or being here in Portugal, I was living in a place called Givat Brenner, which is near Rehovot. It's a kibbutz, so
Yeah.
all different places.
Mm. And in terms of the expectations, was more or less what you had in mind, or was it slightly different? How was the, let's say, the encounter between what you have in terms of forecast and what actually happened in reality? Was it something similar or not much?
I would say it was similar. Also, the idea, that my parents were both born and raised in Israel, so I was able to understand, the way it would be, but also understanding that it was going to be a lot different from the way that my parents remembered. So I think it did align what I kind of expected it to, but also I won't deny that there were many difficulties that people that know me know. I've spoken about with certain people, um, but I think it made me stronger as a person, and I'm grateful for them, for the good and the bad.
Yeah, and not just strong, you are eloquent,
Oh,
courageous,
I'm good.
and honest. Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, like this is look. I'm so people when they compliment you, I'm the kind of guy that gives compliments to everyone else, and usually, and I find it very difficult to take compliments myself because I don't think I deserve them. I don't say that I'm modest because I think like it's not fair to describe yourself that way, but I can't take a compliment. I appreciate giving them out. I love giving them out, but getting compliments from me is always like, oh, do I really deserve that?
Well, there are three
I'm grateful
compliments
for
there.
that.
At least one is
Yeah.
right. At least one, I would say. At least one.
Yes.
It has to be that. No, that's the impression I had of you, Daniel, when I checked your stuff on social media, and I thought this is a great fit for my podcast. I want to bring him for the show and just talk openly about all these things that we usually bring into discussion. Were you in the IDF, or because of your age, it was not mandatory anymore?
Because of the age. Like I remember I went in, I did like some sort of like a kind of Gadna training, which is like a little bit of a course in what they call like a command, but it was a little course. It was not like something big. I was never really like deployed per se. And when I wanted to do something major, like I was like, okay, I want to really enlist and do something. I go in and they're like, you're a bit too old. I think at that time I was 26, 27. I'm like, 26, 27 old? Yeah, you really want to be doing this? I'm like, well, yes, but they're like, no, you don't actually. So you're exempted. And but again, like I think it's very important to serve, very important to do something for your country,
Yeah,
and I really appreciate it because I know how difficult it is.
yeah. And I think Israel cannot afford to dismiss the mandatory military service, because otherwise the country existence will be at stake. It's an absolute must, like it or not. People need to go through that. That's why it's not just men, it's women. Everyone is there on the field. Of course, they have different roles, but still they need to defend the country and understand that if they don't do the real thing, something bad can happen.
And I think, unfortunately, this is what we see. What happened with the 7th of October? What really happened is the fact that we weren't. I don't think we had all of our uh, all of our house in order as we should have had. I think a lot of people would like to say that it's just the politics and the divide of the country, but I don't. I don't really believe that. I think that there was a lot more at play, and that if more people would be joining the army, especially members of the ultra Orthodox community, I think we would have things a lot better. And even if Arabs do not want to be in the army, they could do national service in their communities and make their communities better.
Yeah.
But that's probably for another time, a discussion for another time, or maybe later.
We'll set up a separate episode just on that. But I'll be curious on one thing you just said, because it's controversial, and I like controversy. So I'm always ready to discuss things that are not always consensus. So you believe that the Hasidics should join the army, and what sort of work would they do, in your opinion?
I mean, I don't think that it's such a difficult or a hard take for someone to make, especially when you consider and you remember that back 70, 80, 90 years ago, 100 years ago, back in the shores of Eastern Europe, these people were not, sitting at home studying Torah. Only the most educated of the most educated, only the most, thoughtful, the brightest minds were being sent to yeshivas. And the others were doing work, were contributing to the community, were not, sitting in yeshivas or kollels. And it is kind of maybe even a harder take for me because I do have a religious sister. But again, the difference in America and Israel is that in America, at least, they have to have a job. They have to, provide for their families. And in Israel, unfortunately, we have allowed them with the status quo to just get away with not, doing their fair share.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like they should do more than they do at the moment. My only hesitation is I cannot picture, let's say, I'm fighting in the IDF, and next to me there is one of those guys, carrying a gun. I'm not sure how capable he is and how I'll be protected if I'm fighting side by side with him. That's my only concern.
There are already Haredi battalions in the army as it is. There are already ways where they can actually do, study in a Hesdel or something, partially studying part of the day, and also doing army service in the other part of the day. It's not against religion that they have to serve, or they don't have to serve. The idea of the status quo was that they would build up the numbers to give them that exemption, but the status quo is not, a modern day. It is not a solution for a post 710 Israel. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And
You have to. We have to renegotiate the deal, so to speak. The deal was relevant for a certain time, and now it's not.
do you believe that there is a before and after when it comes to the 7th of October?
I do think there is, and I think that a lot of people felt it. I mean, I can explain from my perspective, like, and I laugh at myself at this way also, but kind of just really just like the shock of it. Between the 6th and the 7th, my neighbors' children in the kibbutz where I'm living decided to have a big party, and until 3 a.m. in the morning, they were partying, and I go to bed, and at 6:30, around 6:30 in the morning, I'm waking up thinking and feeling, something isn't right. And the sirens and everything start, and I'm realizing very quickly that, we are changed. I think a lot of people who are living in the center, south, and south thought, maybe this might be the end. And I do believe 100% that there is a kind of belief of a before and an after, and especially now with the situation in Gaza and dealing with what will happen, nobody in Israel is going to accept a solution in which we go back to a point of security, like the 6th of October, where we are at a loss for protecting ourselves. Everything had to change, and I still think that there are still people in our country that don't want to take responsibility for their roles in that, and don't want to accept that things do have to change.
Yeah, and that's like part of the Israeli society. Not everyone knows, but you guys are quite divided, which is not always a bad thing, because that tells that everyone is able to speak their mind openly, and that adds a lot of contribution to the discussion. But in certain situations, it can keep the country unstable. Now, I know that Israel, when it comes to defense, you guys get together no matter what for the right things. People are on the same side of the table. But when it comes to certain decisions, there's a lot of hesitation, like that one.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I think especially in the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years, or whatever, like people are starting to not see it as many things as black and white issues, but as certain red lines. And I think a lot of people, like especially when it comes to BB, I can speak from my own perspective of having grown up with very Likudnik parents, and with a kind of right wing background. There is a difference between experiencing Likud as a child and outside and disconnected from it all, and experiencing the Likud of today. Like, I think if my parents would have lived in Israel much longer, or would have lived in Israel in the last 10, 15 years, 20 years, or whatever, maybe they wouldn't have been such a strong Likudniks. I know my progression from that is I will support what is right for the country. I will always support what is right for the country, no matter what. But from 2015 of voting for Likud once, my view of the prime minister really kind of just started to go downhill with all of the scandals that a lot of foreigners, don't really know about.
Yeah, and the way he's portrayed it, to the Western world, is like he's some sort of monster. Which, so he's not the most popular person here. I don't know if you saw, he was in Hungary recently, and that's the only place where he's safe, because if he goes, let's say, to Ireland, where I live, or other parts of Europe, they will go after him, which I think is a big. I'm not saying he's a saint, but he's for sure seen as a sinner.
Right. No, of course. I think realistically, what people outside of Israel don't understand is that we are going to support our prime minister no matter like what, when it comes to protecting him, from prosecution, right, left, this, that. Anyone can see, no matter what, that he's being targeted in an unfair manner that many people wouldn't have, ever expected of, let's say George Bush or Tony Blair or some other leader, when it comes to Iraq or Afghanistan or other conflicts. They wouldn't have expected and said anything about that. But Israel is being targeted kind of unfairly. And when it comes to, as I said, to protecting him in that sense, I agree with it. But I think you could agree. You have to be able to be, dynamic and be able to have many different types of opinions. Sometimes will and won't align with what society or what politics or whatever wants to define you as. And I think that makes a person a healthy person, so to speak. It allows for a good debate as well.
Let me go back to your personal journey. So you're a multi-hat guy. So where do I start? Let's start with the actor career. Can you tell us a bit more about what you did on that space?
So with acting, I was very lucky. In around 2016, I got my first role as a bit part for an advertisement, or was it advertisement, or was internal training for some tech company. I got a role for that, and that kind of the acting bug bit me at that time. And then I'm about to think about a year later, it was a year later, I think. I was offered a position on a television series or a Netflix series called the Greenhouse Academy, based on the original Israeli series. And so we shot, I think, 3 episodes. That was a very long and hard day, or long and hard days, because it was, I think, 2 or 3 days of shooting in the end of October, but very hot end of October, pretending it was winter. And I fainted, I think, once, which was a different story for a different time. But a lot of thick equipment and thick clothes in such heat. But afterwards, in between that, I was asked by someone, "Do you want to join an agency?" I'm like, I never thought of myself as an actor, like 100%. And they're like, think about joining the agency. So I joined my agency, and I've done my fair share of roles in Israeli in the Israeli entertainment world. I've done things. Well, I've done background characters in Fauda. I've done it in Tehran. There was a thing called Shat Neila, which was about the 1973. I think one of the biggest things it is, people more or less knew me for, was playing a teacher in a show called The Good Cop. Eretz Nehederet, other like stuff. The Jews are coming. Kupa Rashid, a lot of different things. A lot of different things.
Yeah.
And a lot
You
of
refer-
international. Sorry.
Yeah. No, finish,
And a
please.
few I'm sorry. And a few international productions as well. So it's really been interesting.
Yeah. You refer the acting bug. What is it exactly? Because we know the glamour of being in front of the camera, playing a role, being seen by others on the screen. But what was it for you personally?
I think I really enjoy personally to help people forget about their troubles, about their ills in life, and I really think entertainment done well, a good TV series, a good movie, an audiobook can really help transport people into a different kind of feeling, and I do enjoy that. I do enjoy that.
Yeah, that's for sure very appealing. We have a question here from our friend someone, Daniel or Victor. What piece of art by a Jew would you consider as the greatest artwork in Europe after Daniel's movies? Obviously, Jews contributed in a lot of fields, but which artwork you believe is peak of Jewish contribution? Do you wanna answer first, Daniel? I can
I
answer
think
as
you
well,
should.
but I let you answer first as a guest.
I think I no. I'd like to hear your idea. I mean, if I look for an artist,
Yeah.
I would probably say something by Marc Chagall. Anything by Chagall. I mean, Chagall being
You stole my
one of my
answer.
favorite artists.
You stole my
Sorry.
answer. I wanted to say that. I swear. No, I'm not being.
Yeah.
I'm not being silly. I had that in mind. Like every time someone says Jewish art, what comes to my mind is Marc Chagall because he's
Exactly.
fab. Yeah.
Exactly. I would say. So I mean, we both think the same thing. I think really he is one of the most famous Jewish artists of modern times.
Yeah.
Chagall's work definitely.
Yeah. What about Woody Allen movies? What's your opinion of him?
I think you have to separate the man in his career.
Yeah.
The certain situations he's had in life, so to speak. I think is a brilliant director, brilliant career. But I think, unfortunately, a lot of his situations in life
Yeah.
really do taint that career, so to speak.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The other, I'm just trying to come up with a second answer. The other Jewish artist that I would refer here is an Irishman called Harry Kernoff, about whom I wrote a book. Of course, I'm also trying to promote my book with this. Harry Kernoff, if you guys want to type, is kind of, he's not a Marc Chagall of Ireland, but he's a fabulous painter. So guys, type Harry Kernoff. I can put it here on the screen for people. And Harry Kernoff was a genius. There's no other word to describe him, but a genius. And we have a comment here from Mark Bennett. Insightful and articulately delivered. Ahi. Thanks very much, Mark. Thanks very much.
Your fellow Irishman, by the way. So I
What?
wouldn't. Well, your fellow person in Ireland, by the way.
It is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am.
Oh, I do this.
Okay. So you did those movies. Are you still active in that space, or did you set it aside for a while?
So I want to be more active in it, but obviously being here in Europe makes it a little bit harder because, I've got to. I would have to get maybe into the industry in Port. I mean, I don't know how much there is in Portugal, so to speak, but I'm guessing a lot of things are not maybe done in the north. Mostly, maybe they're done in Lisbon. I remember when I arrived.
That comment can put you in trouble, right? Huh? That comment, if the northern people listen to you.
Yeah, I have no problem saying that. I mean, look, like the north is a very beautiful, but I don't see it as a place where a lot of maybe art or what I say art, but like entertainment is done. Of course, there are entertainment stuff, but I mean, in terms of the movie industry and the and the TV and everything, like that kind of industry, I think more of the entertainment industry is centered more in Lisbon and more south, more of the south, right?
I'm a man from the south. If I say that, they're gonna say I'm biased. But
You're allowed to say it. We can make a joke. You can say whatever you'd like. Oh yes, yes.
would you be interested in theater?
I would actually, if somebody gave me the option, I would. Yeah, I would not say no to that.
All right, we'll take it offline. How about that? I can put you
Oh, thank
in
you.
touch with a couple of people in Portugal for that because I I did a few bits in theater, not much, but maybe I can put you through to a couple of people in Portugal.
Oh, I would be happy to. I would. I think the thing in Israel that a lot of people do and don't understand is that like the reality in Israel being such a small like country, you could go anywhere in the country and shoot wherever you want in the country very easily. Like it does not, take 8, 9 hours, 10 hours to get somewhere. But without a car, jokingly, it
Hmm.
could take, some time. Being here in the north, especially. But you have such a many different climates, many different beautiful places that things could be done in this country.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Another comment from the Tamburim Zim. I'm saying marvelous painting. Probably she's referring to Harry Kernoff. So yeah, I can send you more stuff at Tamburim. Jews have contributed in so many fields, from authors to even my favorite cartoon directors and artists. I believe diasporas forced to live in a compressed neighborhood kicked genius Gene Roving. Couldn't agree more. As an expat myself in the diaspora, couldn't agree more. There's something about living far from the place where you were born that it's inspirational. Is something that you came across, Daniel?
And yes, I mean there are definitely. I feel like in both kind of things that I have drawn inspiration from living in Israel and still missing America, and now being in Portugal and maybe drawing some inspiration from missing Israel and America as well. But it's I think now, especially with the war, it's kind of a double-edged sword because if I think about it a bit too much, it might make me like a bit too sad. But you know, yeah, I've been able to do it in the past. Definitely, definitely, the inspiration is there.
We have here a comment trying to push the North agenda. One of the more important film directors of the road. Yeah, that's very
Manuel de
correct.
Oliveira, yes.
Manuel Oliveira. Yeah, he's from Oporto. He was from Oporto, a
Yes,
national
most
jewel, 100%, 100%. Somebody. He was a very talented director, and he lived a very long life. I think he died. He was already, I don't know, 110 or something like that. Was mad.
2015, right? He died like in 2015.
I think so. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We were speaking about that a few days ago on Thursday in Goy Marriage. So that's the day that name sounded familiar, and I'm like, oh wait, I know that name. Um, so yes, I agree. It's not that I would say that the North doesn't have like an ability to do certain culture or this or that, but I would say if I could edit what I'm saying, I know we can't edit to that. Like so, if I could apologize jokingly, but seriously, that maybe the opportunities more are much more established in places like Porto and like Lisbon and the south.
So
But
let's get into Prague, because it's something that we referred quite a lot, or Czech Republic. And I can see
You-
smiling
you've
already.
been watching.
I'm very much into Prague myself. That was my first trip, let's say, outside of Western Europe. And Prague is like Central Eastern Europe, and I loved it. I was there when I was 25. It was my first birthday abroad, so we share that love for Prague. Can you tell me about yours? What is it about the Czech capital?
So what is it about the Czech capital? Actually, when you talk about your first birthday abroad and being 25, 25 was actually how old I was when I went to the Czech Republic for the first time, which is actually weird. So like in 2016, I decided to go with friends. They invited me like, "Do you want to come to our house in near Mariansky Lasny?"
Mm.
I'm like, okay, fine. So we go to Mariansky Lasny. I'm a lot of the time there. I get to see Carlo Vivari, and I get to see Prague, I think 2 to 3 times while I was there. But I didn't really get the chance to explore because I was with the friends. So, life goes on, and I keep saying, okay, this place is beautiful. I really love it, whatever. Eight, 8 years, no, 7 years go by. And of course, in that time, my father died a few months before, and we have the war going on. And I'm like, look, I want to go back to a place I felt comfortable with or felt comfortable in. Maybe try to just breathe after everything that had happened during the war, and see what I can do. And I spent 2 weeks there in April of last year, and then another month in August to September. So I really just feel like very calm and very happy there.
Mm. Did
Very
you meet Franz
beautiful.
Kafka?
Sorry.
Did you meet Franz Kafka? The writer.
Oh, there's so much of his life that I always felt like he understood me more than, well, he didn't understand me, but that our lives were more intertwined and more understandable from that kind of facet. If you look at that, I will never call myself a Franz Kafka, even though I wish I could have even a little bit of the talent that he had in writing. But I mean, the guy was a genius, a pure genius.
Yeah. It's a pity that he died that young. Imagine if he would be living up to the age of, I don't know, 70, even 80. The amount of masterpieces we will have now would be enormous. We have a good few,
We do.
taking consideration, how short was his life, but he was just talented. He didn't have a lot of time because he had to work. He was spend a lot of time on the office. But if you would have, let's say, the right energy levels, like you would have, I mean, you would have delivered the best gift ever for the human race.
Oh, I agree. I agree, and I think we have a lot to thank Max Brod for that. He's a friend and confidant. I think if I remember correctly, Kafka told Max Brod to burn the manuscripts when he died, and he never burned the manuscripts. So we really have to thank Max Brod for that.
Yes.
Those manuscripts still surviving. But yes, you have to ask yourself, as you said, what would he have achieved if he would have lived to the age of 70, even 80, uh, even 50, 50, 60? What would he have achieved?
Yeah, would have been enormous, I would say. What's your favorite Kafka book? We have any book fetish or something?
Metamorphosis
Oh yeah,
is a good one. Yeah. I think that's
yeah,
a good choice.
yeah. I read also the diaries, and it's impressive. The how much
Yes,
lucid that man was. It's impressive. How he could capture the day-to-day life, people's motions and emotions. He was so gifted. He was so gifted, and I think he didn't study literature or anything like that. He was just born and built that way.
exactly. And I think especially nowadays we have to more appreciate that somebody who just had that natural knack, that natural talent for being able to just express himself.
Yeah, talking of appreciation. Sorry, I don't want to switch topic. I just want to thank Salman for subscribing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah, and she's also thanking me for inviting you to the podcast and sending blessings and regards. I'm giving you back the blessings. So thank you very much for that, Salman. I discuss a lot of Jewish Israeli things in this podcast, and as a matter of fact, on Wednesday we'll be discussing how much Israel stands out in the political scene as a democracy in the Middle East. So if you something that you are into, I'm here pre-announcing it will be Wednesday, 7 p.m. Portugal Ireland time. So guys, you just do the maths with your own time zone. Let me go back to your artistic life and bring into discussion also what you do in the tech sector, because how do you find the balance between the two?
I think you have to be able to find the balance of what you really want to do in life and what you also realize is going to pay the bills. Tech in Israel is a very good job, but also there is a lot of burnout that people don't want to speak, about in the industry, which I really do feel and I really do understand. And if given, the option of working for something, more established or working for a startup, I will never. Well, I don't say I want to. I would never do it, but I feel I could say at this time that working for startups right now would be something I would probably not want to do because too many times will give you stock options and less of a salary. Okay, you've got to really believe in what you're doing, and I would hope that things might change one day. But a lot of these places just expect you to take the stock options and not live maybe as well as you might want to. But to go back to what you were saying before of finding kind of a mixture between the two, I think realizing you need something to pay the bills, and you can't forever be, I don't know, maybe in Portugal you don't have this idea, but at least in the States, in like a place like Los Angeles or even maybe New York as well, the idea of the waiter, actor, model, that joke. The person who is an actor has to do so many things in order to be able to survive, to be able to do their passion, because they're not just able to survive on an actor's salary.
Yeah, you can get the worst of both worlds. I just think that I get the message. Like there's even a book in Portugal called the Banker Anarchist. Have you read that from Fernando Pessoa? Maybe you know the poet.
I should know it. I want to send it to me privately. I want to read about this. There's so many things I need to read. So many things I need to learn and understand, because I think
that's about a banker that
yes,
he hates the system. He hates the whole financial system, but he finds that the only way that he can that is accessible for someone like him is to just make money out of the system. So use the system to attack the system, which is apparently a contradiction, because people think, okay, if you wanna make sure that you survive the system, you need to beat you off the system. But he does that, let's say, from inside. It's kind of an inside job. I think it's very worth reading. But I will send that to you.
Definitely, I want to read it because I do feel a kind of parallel in understanding of that kind of concept, because you have to sometimes work in something. Sometimes something you might think is your passion, or you might think you really want to do all of your life. Then you realize, okay, I like it, I'm happy with it, but it doesn't really fulfill me on the inside as much as I, want to be able to do the other passion. But the passion doesn't fulfill a stable paycheck all the time, unfortunately. But that's the reality of working in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, that's the artist dilemma, no? That you want to spend time doing your thing, but then you have the physical needs, and this needs to be covered, like it or not. My concern would be if you have a job that is cutthroating and you don't have much energy levels after you close your laptop or whatever you do. Like, how can you still be able to put stamina in building your creative, your creative aspect? Because most times there's not much left. So how can you protect yourself to make sure that you want to start something that makes sense, you can still do it properly?
I think you have to be able to, as you are sure, as you understand, like you have to be able to give yourself the time to develop your craft, to develop something that you love, and you have to be able to kind of I don't want to say create separate versions of yourself, but like you have to find the time to be able to shut off, the work and be able to develop your craft, whether it is to take a sabbatical for the time that you want to develop that craft, whether it is to find something remote to be able to develop that craft at times that you want to develop it. If you want to do something, you will find a way to be able to do it, so to speak.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. If you want to do it, we do it regardless of what's happening. Like, I think if
Exactly.
someone is determined, even if the road is upside down and there is a lot of
There
issues
is
in there, yeah, you will do it. We will do it regardless. You just need to
yeah,
prioritize what matters, and you'll make it, I think. And it's not just BS. It works like that.
exactly, and that is really how life is. And I've found in many different facets of my life, just finding a way to get through it. I mean, sometimes ending a shift and then literally going off to something where I'm literally feeling I must look exhausted. And there are certain definitely clips of certain things I've done where if you look at me and you could see me in the background of whatever it is, you might think, does this guy look tired? Or whatever it is. And if you look at them, I'm like, yeah, I remember that day. I was extremely exhausted, but I forced myself to go through it and do it. Um, but yeah, you just plug along with whatever it needs to happen.
Not today. Today you look pretty fresh, maybe because it's Sunday.
Thank you. Now I'm feeling I don't look fresh. Oh, thank you for that.
That's another
And
compliment.
thank you, and thank you for your choosing of your choice of the for the video, the icon for the video to use a photo of me from 10 years ago.
I didn't know. I just picked
Oh,
up
it
what
was 10 years ago,
went well.
literally.
Yeah.
I wish I still looked like that, but yes. Thank you.
Are you still busy with tech?
But I am trying to develop myself here in Portugal in terms of like trying to be somewhat busy. There is a certain remote job that I'm working like with at the moment. As of will I continue with it? Will I be happy with it? Maybe, maybe not, because they are based in abroad in France. It's a company somebody wouldn't, or many people wouldn't have heard of. But I'm trying, probably thinking for the long term, I should find a Portuguese company, even if it means making less money. Uh, Being and having everything paid through Portugal would probably be better for me than working remotely for a company, even with more of a wage.
Yeah, he's another person acknowledging your words. Yura, she says, yes, that makes sense. We need to find balance in your life. So I can see your attitude resonates with people, which is great, and it's also motivating, as Zamboring is stating, as some authors say it. He doesn't remember the origin, to live our life as a work of art. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly,
100%.
exactly.
The comments are just flying. Let's read more Tolkien and the Lord of Rings to stay happy, healthy, and appreciative. Yeah, why not? I
Yes.
think.
No, I'm really grateful for that.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm finding the balance in my life here, but I've only been in Portugal since October 17th, 19th. So we're coming up at least on what, like 5, 6, 7 months, 7 months, 6 7. Okay, David, it's felt like a dream sometimes. All of these travels in Europe to get to where I am now, but
Mm.
it's an experience. And just building yourself up in a different country is never easy, if I could say
Yeah,
it
no,
that way.
never, never. And if it's not easy, it's not fun. That's the way I see it. Why Portugal?
I'm afraid to say it that people will look at me and think, well, what were you thinking? But realistically, in the Israeli media, there was a lot of reality that the Portuguese were very accepting of Israelis fleeing the war and coming from the war. If I would have to have done it differently, which I'm still right now trying to fix how I had done this, I would have probably applied for a different type of visa coming here. And now
Yeah,
it's just a matter of trying to fix like that. Um, but the Portuguese were considered to be very friendly and very understanding of the situation. Culturally, I think it's a little bit easier to be here in Portugal than even if I want to be in Prague and love Prague and feel the whole, Central Europe, Germanic culture, Eastern Europe, whatever. They don't like being called Eastern Europe, but the whole Central European culture is more attuned to me. There is something about being in Portugal that still feels like home, if that makes sense. Like
Yes.
there is the kind of Mediterranean Atlantic culture here in Portugal, and also to the neighboring country as well, which I identify with a lot. And I feel that if Israel wasn't the way it was, it would maybe be a lot more like Spain or like Portugal, but hopefully a lot more like Portugal.
Would you go back to Israel, or let's say on vacation?
I'm afraid this is going to sound like really bad no matter what. And I'll try to really think about it, how I express myself. Look, Israel is always like home. It's no matter how much I try to deny that I would love to stay in Europe all of my life, or that I could do like most of my life in Europe. Israel is and was home, and I would love to go back and live without the stress of the war, end of life, in general, Israel, because Israel is very difficult to live in, even on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure you've been,
Yeah,
right?
several
And
times.
you know
Yeah,
what
several times.
many times you know what I'm saying when I say that, like, I think a lot of people describe the country as living on I don't know, living with a Greek wage and Swiss style pricing. That makes sense. Or maybe a different way of describing it that way. Like it's day to day, it could be very difficult. And if it were less difficult, that would be one thing. But like, I think if I went back right now, going into like a regular store, compared to going into like a Lidl or to an Aldi or to Super Mercadona or Continent or Pegodos.
You know them all.
And
I can see you know them all, the supermarkets. No,
you know what I'm saying.
on Portuguese supermarkets. Yeah.
Yes. So, like
Compliment
going
now on
there,
Portuguese people. Historically, Portugal has been a springboard of amazing invasions and attempts at global discoveries. Once considered the backwater, know nothing, this small piece of corn has surprised people. Portugal is much more than stereotyped wine corkers.
I agree. Look, like I think Portugal is a country of tremendous talent. I mean, we have in the group a very famous singer whose name I will not say, but she knows who she is, and you know who she is, I'm sure.
Yeah, we know well. Yeah,
I've been a fan of hers for many years, and just to see that she was like there in that, like, wow. But he's right with what he said. Like, this is a country of so much talent, of so much history, of so much beauty. It has so many benefits. And for people that have never come to Portugal or think of Portugal only as Lisbon and Porto and the Algarve and that, there's so much to see and so much to explore and so much to appreciate about this country.
yeah, 100%, 100%. I'm actually going to Israel in June for the first week. I'm looking forward. You mentioned about me being in Israel. I'm counting the days. Yeah,
You're counting the days. So now that you say that you're going, maybe I'll come back just for that. But we'd have to see what would happen with Ima and whatever if I decided to go back for a little bit. Shout out to Ima, because everyone knows Ima is amazing.
Yeah. There's always something.
I'm not being sarcastic. Oh yes, I am a little bit. Sorry to
No, that was always something.
Yeah.
Always something going on.
I'll tell you something. Happy to tell you whatever you'd like.
Yeah. It's never boring. It's never boring. Let's put it like that.
Exactly.
I want to give a shout out to our friend. Let's give a shout out to our good friend, because she put us in contact. She has been doing an amazing job on Facebook, and I think it's just a starting point. She's listening to us. I want to send her a massive applause for the job she does on the background. You are not looking for any social recognition or medals, anything like that. She's genuinely on Israeli side, which I think it's fantastic. Let me ask you one thing. Why do you think people on the road are anti-Semitic? And they were always anti-Semitic, and it seemed that this sentiment is not going anywhere. Why this special hatred for the Jews?
I wish I could really kind of, say it that and really kind of put my finger on it, but I think it really just stems down to, odd libels, to hatred, to things that never really can be stamped out of certain societies. I mean, I look at it, and again, I don't mean to bring up the other city as much as I love it so much, like Prague. When I came here um, to Lisbon, and I saw that like just outside of the Campo Pequeño, just all of this hatred, all of this just belief system, and then I compare it to Prague of how you just don't feel the hatred, so to speak. I think a lot of it has to do with how people are, or how a society is, and how it can be tolerated. I think a lot of it has to do kind of with education too. If a person is kind of educated to kind of be able to think for themselves rather than basically to rely just on media, just on textbooks, just on that, then maybe there's hope for them to maybe get a better understanding. But if people take certain things as just the word from just the ultimate source, and you can't really say if someone is an ultimate source or not if they've never really spent time on the ground, then I think you see where we are in the world, where there's just so much hatred. Whereas people who are open are willing to kind of give love and give more of an understanding a chance, really understand that the issue is not so black and white.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's quite complex, as you said. Would you usually
It's like,
yourself? No, go ahead.
sorry. I was just saying it is, and it's hard. It's hard to be an advocate. It's hard to continually hear like negative things. It's very difficult, but you also know where a lot of times where it's coming from. And I've heard like as well that you I also want to give a shout out to you. I know that you've kind of suffered like as well for your advocacy, that it hasn't always been easy for you. And I want to thank you for that as well, because I know it's difficult. I know there is a lot of times a price to pay for something. And even if the price might be high, you're willing to take that risk. I really appreciate it. I applaud it. And the other friend of ours, who again, the famous friend of ours whose name I'm not going to mention because I don't want to give too much. And even to the other friend of ours, thank you to all of you. But I think I should maybe make a mention. I'm probably going to fail this if I don't. I think the 28th of September, we're going to have a march in Lisbon.
Yeah.
In September, so the 28th. I don't know if I think that's a Sunday, but I might be mistaken. Get the calendar up,
right.
and don't. It is okay. So we're going to have a march in Lisbon, and more information will probably be forthcoming about that. And it would be really nice to have people attend, like to have advocates and people who are pro-Israel attend that.
Yeah,
I'd love to always meet people.
I'll do my best to attend, although I'm overseas. And no, what I will say about the price for an advocacy that is not very well seen, like I go back to one of my favorite Jordan Peterson's quote when he says, if you stay silent about something, you have something to say, then you are lying. And I don't want to lie. There's one thing that I'm not, is dishonest. I might have a couple of bad traits like everyone else, but I don't stay quiet when there is something to be spoken. So it's like that. And I think it even damages you if you stay mute when you know the right thing to do is to open your mouth. Then you are making yourself ill, and I don't allow society to do that to me. No, I remember when I was in my early 20s, I met a guy called Vitor, same name as me. He was a very famous alternative publisher, and he says, I may not be able to change the road, but I want to allow the road to change me. So I live based on that premise.
And I think like as well, like I try to live, I try to be as authentic as possible, as I am. A lot of times people are like, well, what you see is what you get. I'm like, yes, what you see is what you get. I don't try to make a persona online that you can't see in person. I try to be exactly the same way that one might may or may not see. And I appreciate that. I appreciate really authentic experiences and people that are willing to stand up for what is right, for what is good. No pun, intended. Um, at a cost to whatever it is for them. It brings hope that humanity could be more like that as well. And I hope that we're going in that direction.
Yeah, that's the right thing to do. Look, we could go further in this conversation, but I don't want to neglect the comments. I want to thank them and bring them to discussion. There are so many that I'm even losing track of them. So what do we have here? A question for us, Daniel. Which are your top 3 favorite books of all time? I'm asking both of you, if you can share titles. I really like such interesting conversations and people's book choices tell about their nature. Someone, it's not that I want to sell the podcast all the time, but on Tuesday we have the Witty Week Writers Workshop at 8:30 Portuguese time. So I invite you to join that discussion because we're going to talk all the things related to writing. Do you want to start, Daniel, with your 3 favorite books, or do you want to pick one? I pick one. How do you want to do this?
Yeah, so let's go. I'll pick one. I'm a very big fan of Jules Verne, and so Jules Verne wrote a book, a Paris, I think, in the 20th century, which I think was only published in French in 1993. It was a 93, 94. It was a lost manuscript, and he kind of got so many things right. He was able to predict the future pretty well. I think he got a lot of things about telecommunications right, about the way that people would be traveling by plane right. I really like the works of Jules Verne a lot. Um, Maybe as well if I say that I like the works of J.K. Rowling as a child or teenager, I will get canceled. But I enjoyed Harry Potter a lot as a child. But I really enjoy the classics, Kafka's Metamorphoses,
Yeah.
and the diaries as you wrote as well, um, or as you said as well. There's a lot of things that I really enjoy.
Yeah. I would say
What
it's
about you?
very hard to pick 3. So any book of Michel Houellebecq, it's a great book. I don't know if you know Michel Houellebecq, the French writer. He is a genius. He's probably the best writer we have in the current day and age. My favorite book of his, it's nearly impossible to answer. Maybe Submission. I think it's a good heads up for what's happening in France and in Europe. I can also refer maybe Franz Kafka. I was discussing him a while ago. Favorite book of Kafka, another tough question. Maybe The Castle. I like The Castle, just to say something
Yes, yes,
unusual.
exactly. Yes, I agree.
And I'm like you, Daniel. So I will stay with the classics. So maybe Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky is another great one. Maybe the Idiot. The Idiot is a great book, but any book of Dostoevsky or The White Knights. That's also one to read, and it's a small one. I think it's like 150 pages. So any Dostoevsky book, it's well spent time.
Yes.
What else do
And
we have here?
I love the comments of our friend Tabarim Zim. Really, thank you for always making me smile, and
Yeah.
I love that.
Salman is saying
Uh,
the first memory I have about Portugal as a kid was reading a famous earthquake of Lisbon that resulted in people questioning religion. Voltaire, another great author, wrote a book too. People died on Christmas.
was that the earthquake of 1750, like where the Marcus de Pombal statue? It kind of commemorates Marcus de Pombal.
Yep,
If you
75.
come back, I swear we will I will walk with you like in the Park Eduardo and right by the statue everywhere. Like I would just love to the history and hearing the history about that.
Yeah. Yes, Candid mentioned 1755 earthquake. We danced at Paris and we died in Lisbon. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bad thing to laugh about. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a bad one. It looks like a Leonard Cohen coat. This first we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. Were you a fan of Leonard Cohen yourself?
I think everyone has to be a fan of Leonard Cohen. The guy was a genius. Was a extreme genius. Um, Jewish musicians have really given a lot to the world. I mean, you look at Leonard Cohen, you look at Bob Dylan, you look at Barbara Streisand. Again, I would probably get in trouble for saying this. I really appreciate. I, not saying that modern music is really not really my forte, but stuff of the older generation, the 60s, 70s, 50s, 40s. I'm very much a classical person. If you put me in a suit and a tie and everything and tell me let's go to the theater, let's go to the ballet, let's go do something like that, I really appreciate that. I really appreciate all of those things. But his words are so beautiful. I mean, you look at something like Hallelujah. Hallelujah was really a song I think that is in everyone's conscious.
Oh yeah, you cannot be indifferent to Hallelujah. It might not be your favorite song. Fine, I'm fine with that. But you cannot be indifferent. It's too powerful. It's too powerful.
Exactly.
You cannot turn a blind eye. No, it will gather your soul and make sure that you will react. There's no way around. There's no way around. Another comment. Your work, Vitor, is invaluable. Your contribution, Daniel, bright and precious. So proud of both. Thank you very much. A lot of kind words.
Oh yes.
Love Jules Verne. Were you a Jules Verne fan when you were a kid, or you still read his books?
I still am. I still am. Jules Verne is really one of those special people. And my father loved Jules Verne. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Like I don't think anyone could say they haven't read that book. But I think I was taught, especially like at home, to appreciate the classics much more than. I'm really dragging my country when I say, well, one of my countries to the mud when I say this, but like, I think that in the States, maybe the classics are not always appreciated amongst the majority of the population. But I've always appreciated the classics, whether it's, as I said, theater, whether it's in books, literature, whether it's in movies, any sort of cultural kind of thing. The classics are always going to rule.
Yeah, that's why they are the classics, no? they are
True.
they are talking to the heart of humanity. So you cannot just you cannot love Houellebecq. Thank you very much. Houellebecq, he's a genius. Few others. Essed Queiroz, Portuguese one. I don't know if you read him or not. Highly recommend. Milan Kundera, that's another one we almost forgot. We talk about Prague, Jewish writers. Yeah, Milan Kundera, no?
Oh yes, Kundera. Everyone knows though. Kundera is one of the greats.
Yeah, Miguel de Unamuno, a Spanish writer who was very much into Portugal. Don't know if you are familiar with him, but he was another genius. Him and Ortega y Gasset, they really predicted what was going to happen with the wider society, and they were spot on.
Yes.
And the Brazilian writer Clarice Lispector. Are you into poetry yourself?
I am into poetry. I do love poetry.
Oh man, we need to have like I don't know how many episodes just to talk to you. One about poetry, one about Jewish stuff. I didn't know it, but
No, I mean I'd love it. I mean, I would love to be. I'd love to sit down for coffee. Like I think we could format them in many different ways. A coffee with Vitor, like literally. I just think you get me, and you remind me of a friend in Montreal that also, to bring back to the Leonard Cohen thing, also loves Leonard Cohen, also loves classics. You seem to be a lot like him, a very cultured man, or a really Renaissance man.
And your friend was also handsome like me, That's what you want to say.
he also did some acting, or did took part in a very famous music video for a Quebecois band. So yeah, I would say that you're both handsome, not judging anything else. Handsome and good souls, for sure.
Yeah. Maybe you can put me in touch with him, and I invite him in for a conversation.
I think he would enjoy that. I think he would definitely enjoy that. I'll put you in touch with him after the show. I really, these intellectual conversations are. Okay, now I'm going to say where I live, and people are going to be like, "Oh, you live there." In Fafe, there's something that I'm definitely missing here in Fafe, to a point that I would love to move to a different place in Portugal, just because I don't feel like I don't have the intellectual stimulation that I need to here in this place.
Another comment coming from someone. My favorite Jewish writer person is Moses and Father Abraham.
Okay.
Hebron is a place I wish I could go one day. Yeah, me too. Me too. I would love to
You've
sit
never
in
been?
Hebron.
I could take you at least to our side. I've been once to our side, and I've sit in the cave of the patriarchs. I've been in once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to show it to you. I mean, it depends on if I can come back into the country, or how depending on how I set this up. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just talking of that and setting aside arts as we come to the very last minutes of this podcast. How do you foresee will be the future of Israel and the Middle East in a wider sense? Or at least the neighbor countries and all that. What would be your bet?
But look, I would love to say to people that kumbaya and everything, and we could live in a peaceful world. But as much as I want to be a pragmatist, I'm very much a realist, and I think we will never. My mother put it best to me. We finally had a conversation after a few months, and she's like, "This region will never really see the peace as we wanted. It will never really be like just this Garden of Eden. It will have Garden of Eden places, but it will never really have the peace." I think, unfortunately, the biggest problem of the world, and of especially of Europe, and especially of so many other people in many different countries, is they think that they could just sing kumbaya, and then we'll just have a peace agreement, and that when it comes to probably what's happening with Jordan and with Egypt, the peace will probably stay, whether or not they want it. They know that it's important for them. With Lebanon, eventually, I do think something will happen, and I think something will maybe eventually happen with Syria. I can't say what, but nobody really expected Assad to be forced out. But here we are. Assad is no longer since December of last year. But if I had a crystal ball, I'd probably have already won the Euro Millions already. I would have probably already won it, jokingly, so to speak. But nobody really knows. But I think we have to be prepared for anything as it is. But do I think we'll probably see more war in the region? Probably. I think what we'll see more often, even if we don't want to move into a different section, or to move into a different kind of topic, is probably more wars with water wars, because the region is definitely lacking in water, and without water, I mean, you can't really sustain life.
Yeah, 100%. And the other issue is one of the sides, they are not interested in peace. They are not interested in harmony. All they want is
Exactly.
conflict, and that's how they build their wealth, and they expand their narrative. So if it stays like that, there's no way that people will live, in coexistence.
I agree with you on that, and I mean, it's something you can't always tell people 100% that don't really understand it. But it's like, if they understood and you explained to them that if we had a peace agreement tomorrow and they had to rule themselves, I mean, the Palestinian Authority would probably be out, because they couldn't blame anyone else. They couldn't blame the occupation. They couldn't
Yeah.
blame this. They've been corrupt for so many years, stealing aid money, stealing that under the blind eye of the UN and so many other organizations that just allow them to get away with it and infantilize them. That's, I think, our biggest problem, is the infantilization of the Palestinians, the Palestinian Authority. by not holding them responsible for pay to slay or for this or for, hyping up their people on terrorism, with propaganda, with so many things, you have created a generation that has never been, shown that there are clear, issues that you have to solve, and that, if you do something, if you're not being held responsible, then, what do you have to lose if you're not being held responsible?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's how it is, and I don't think it will get any better in the next generation or two. And the other thing I find like awful is that the Western world is always welcome to accept refugees just to protect them. But there are Palestinians now; they need to stay there and fight. It seems that
Yes.
they need to be martyrs for the rest of their lives, and there is no way that they can be exiled for, let's say, for a couple of years and then be back when things are more or less normal. There's no like reasoning when it comes to this topic.
No, I agree with you on that, and it's unfortunately a reality that you wish you could speak to people about it more or less, and then the reality as well that a lot of these Arab countries don't really want them. You look at how they're treated in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan. I mean, they're basically put into little, I don't want to call it squad conditions, but what they call camps or whatever, which in reality are cities. You even have them in Judea and Samaria and Gaza. They exist primarily as cities, but in places like Jordan, maybe not so much they're allowed to work, but like Syria and Lebanon, they're not really even allowed to work or have rights. I mean, then you look at the reality of what they did in Kuwait of supporting Saddam back in 1991. They were kicked out. Wherever they go, they kind of don't bring harmony to their countries or their places where they are moving to.
Yeah,
And
it's a
then there's the whole UNRWA, which is allowing
Mm.
everybody to be a refugee in perpetuity, which is a topic probably for another hour and a half, which we don't have. But there's so many issues here that need to be unfolded and need to be discussed head on. But the other side doesn't want to discuss it head on.
Yeah. So someone is just agreeing with you, Daniel. There'll be water wars, food wars, mineral wars, mindless wars. Either a zombie apocalypse or a paradise with trees. Only time should tell. We need to create our hobbit halls and peace sanctuaries. Yeah, it's just difficult to understand. We can do that, but for sure the intention needs to be in our hearts and always unveil the truth with an educated road. Criminals will find more troubles to resist. And back to Salman, Palestinians are the richest people on earth. With asylum, they can reach Canada or USA. Then a graduate or a scholar would require millions just to immigrate. I ask how their youth get their expensive cannons. Yeah, good question. Good question. Yeah.
Good question. Oh, I can say something about like that. I don't want to I don't want to. I know this is going to be on the internet for like all time, but I will say something about something like in general. Like this guy has always been a voice of reason. The same thing with Sonia, just good voices of reason, good voices of clarity and reality, which I could always appreciate.
Right, let's come to a conclusion here. I want to bring a figure, a Jewish figure, to the stage. The very influenced by the Jewish culture, great Allen Ginsberg. And as a matter of fact, Daniel, I have a friend visiting me for the weekend with a wife, and they were impressed with the amount of books I have. I'm not going to brag here, but I have a good number of books with me. And one of them that was just at the top is the O from great Allen Ginsberg, which is one poem that you cannot avoid if you're into poetry.
Of course, I agree with that. It's a very good poem and a very good author.
Yeah. Were you into the Beat generation?
Sorry?
Were you into the Beat generation or the likes of Jack
Yes.
Kerouac,
No, of course, the
Ferlinghetti?
consideration. Yes. Sometimes I ask myself, like that, what was it called? Is it forgot what the band is called. They're from California or something. They were all in the 60s.
Mm.
It's the song is I think I wasn't made for these the Beach Boys. I think I wasn't made for these times. I sometimes have to ask myself what I made for these times and what I made for the 40s or 50s or 60s. I was born in the wrong generation.
Yeah, I can relate to that feeling too. I would just say, when it comes to the Beat Generation, my favorite writer, he was part of the Beat Generation, although he was slightly different, or he had his own path. Let's say William Burroughs. I'm a big fan of his book, especially The Naked Lunch. That novel
Oh, yeah.
changes my whole concept of prose.
Yes, I happen to agree with that. You're a really good writer as well. You really have a, you seem to be a, really enjoy the classics, really enjoy so many of the same books, and you seem to really get me. I'm glad I was
Yeah,
connected with you. You really, I want to see that library too. It
you're
looks.
welcome. You're welcome. I'll give you my address. You're welcome to come here to Ireland.
Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel and Vitor, and thank you, Salman.
Oh,
You both
thank you, Simon.
glued me to the screen. Quality content. It was like with friends on campfire sharing stories. See you.
Oh,
Peace. Thank you very much. I hope I see you around, Salman. We have stuff which I think we will relate to in the next few days, and that's the intention for the podcast going forward. So, thank you very much, Salman, and thank you very much, Daniel, to be here.
thank
I
you.
have the impression we could be here for the rest of our Sunday, but we have our own duties to fulfill.
We could definitely be here for the rest of our Sunday for our own duties to fulfill. I am honored. Thank you very much for this invite. It was a really special um, time, a really amazing time. Really enjoyed this chat. It did. It felt like as Salman had said, it felt like a chat with a friend, like a sitting at a campfire, sitting at a coffee shop. Thank you. You really made this something very special for me.
Yeah, delighted to hear. Just for people who are listening to us, like press those buttons below, like, share, subscribe. Please press all of them. They help me because the algorithm is not always in our favor. So if you guys do your contribution, then this thing can get spread and more people can watch it. So if you can uh, be that kind and press those three buttons below, that would be great. So if you are satisfied with what you are seeing, there's a like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do, like thumbs up. Exactly, thumbs up. And if you know someone who missed this episode and they are into real and raw conversations with a focus on Jewish art and heart, share. This will be here. This will be stored in my YouTube library, so they have the chance to watch it later on. So, in terms of next podcasts, what I have on the pipeline, just want to pre-announce. Tuesday, I have the Witty Week for Writers Workshop. So we just discuss writers' struggle, writers' inspiration, how we come up with our ideas, how to have the right discipline and mindset to put our thoughts on paper. So if you are into books, writing, and arts in general, that's something I invite everyone to watch. It's Tuesday, 8:30, Portugal or Ireland time. Israel is 2 hours ahead of us. Wednesday, we have a discussion on Israeli politics. So we will try to expand on how much Israel stands out as the only place where democracy is in place in the Middle East. So that's something that needs to be said out loud for the people. And Thursday is something very different. It's football. Thursday is football day here. So we discuss the League of Ireland, just something light-hearted for the end of the week. Thank you very much, Tamborim. We love it, and we love you too. So thank you very much for the kind comments. And I come to a closure with the impression that we could be here forever, but with the promise that we will sit together very soon. Okay.
Muito obrigado. Thank you for this very much, Vitor. Thank you to everyone who was involved. To anyone who will watch this in the future, please make sure to like and subscribe and share Vitor's content. He's doing such a great job and deserves all of the support that he can get.
Cheers, everyone, and I see you